seen anything like that before, one villager whispered to another, both staring in disbelief. Not in my life, replied the other, equally astonished. But before we start, smash the like button and make sure to subscribe if you haven't, and hit that notification bell so that you won't miss any new stories. This giant iceberg, unlike the smaller fragments that usually melted away on their journey, had somehow arrived intact, stirring excitement and curiosity among the townsfolk. It's a marvel it made it here at all, they agreed, their usual chatter replaced by a shared sense of wonder at the ice giant before them. People scratched their heads, wondering how this giant iceberg could have arrived near their town. It was either the biggest iceberg anyone had ever seen, or it hadn't melted much on its way here, which was really strange. It's huge. Must have been a giant to start with, one person guessed, looking out at the vast block of ice that sparkled under the sun. Or maybe it's got some magic keeping it from melting, joked another, though everyone knew that was unlikely. While most folks were just amazed at the size of the iceberg, there was someone who noticed something different. He squinted, leaning forward as if trying to see a secret the iceberg was hiding. His curiosity was piqued not just by the iceberg's size, but by something unusual about it that others hadn't spotted yet. Peter had been staring at the iceberg for what felt like hours, his high-quality binoculars bringing the icy expanse into sharp focus. He couldn't help but marvel at how the sunlight played across the surface, creating a mesmerizing display of blues and whites that seemed almost surreal. The sheer grandeur of nature's creation held him captivated, with every glance revealing new patterns and secrets concealed within the ice. As his gaze shifted to the iceberg's peak, a sudden movement grabbed Peter's attention. His heart skipped a beat. No way, he whispered, his breath catching. Could it be, he muttered, squinting for a clearer view. What he saw was utterly unexpected, a vivid anomaly amidst the desolate icy expanse. It amidst the serene beauty of the frozen landscape. A splash of color stood out, vibrant and alive, contrasting starkly with the monochrome world around it. The discovery sent a thrill coursing through his veins. Despite his best efforts, Peter couldn't quite make out the details of the mysterious sight that had captured his attention. He was certain, though, that something was there, moving with purpose across the icy landscape. The fleeting glimpse was enough to pique his curiosity, a vibrant blur against the stark white of the iceberg. After a few tense seconds, the movement vanished, slipping silently to the far side of the iceberg, leaving Peter with nothing but the cold, silent expanse of ice. He stood there with his binoculars still pressed to his eyes, a mix of confusion and intrigue washing over him. What on earth could it be, he muttered to himself, his mind racing with possibilities. The sudden disappearance of the movement only fueled his curiosity further, turning it into a burning desire to uncover the secrets hidden by the ice. The idea that whatever or whoever had been moving on the iceberg might have been stranded there for days, maybe even weeks, was perplexing. Considering the iceberg's gradual drift across the ocean, the thought of survival seemed almost inconceivable. Peter was full of questions. How did it survive out here, he wondered, imagining all the ways something could last through such tough conditions. And why the top of the iceberg? It seemed like the riskiest place to be on this slowly melting chunk of ice. Despite the clear danger, there it was, a sign of life where you'd least expect it, right in the middle of the biting cold. Peter felt stuck, unsure of his next move. Telling someone crossed his mind, but he quickly dismissed the idea, skeptical that anyone would take his word for it. After all, he had no evidence of his extraordinary sighting and, truth be told, he was starting to question his own belief in what he had seen. He contemplated simply walking away from the whole experience, going back to his daily routine. If there truly was something out there on the ice, he figured, it would show itself again eventually. However, Peter wasn't one to just let things go, especially not something as intriguing as this. In a town where excitement was rare, Peter was always on the lookout for anything that could break the monotony of his daily life. The mysterious movement on the iceberg was precisely the kind of mystery he craved. This was his chance for an adventure, a break from the everyday boredom. It was an adventure calling his name, and he was more than ready to answer it. He knew exactly what he was going to do. Peter chose to keep his discovery to himself and decided to investigate the iceberg alone. He remembered that he could borrow the small speedboat owned by his brother-in-law, which he had used several times before. With a plan in mind, he headed to the local store to pick up some ice climbing gear, just in case he needed to scale the iceberg. His purchase, however, didn't go unnoticed and drew curious looks from the store's staff. The unusual gear was not something people bought every day, especially in a town where life usually moved at a slower pace. The moment Peter placed the ice climbing gear on the counter, the shop owner's eyebrows shot up in disbelief. The giant iceberg had been the subject of much gossip, and here was Peter, seemingly preparing to take it on. "You're not seriously thinking of climbing that beast, are you?" he asked, his voice laced with incredulity and concern. "That's not just daring, it's downright lunacy. Do you have any idea how dangerous that floating mountain is?" The skepticism in the shop owner's eyes was unmistakable. He shook his head, clearly thinking Peter's venture was more than just a bad idea, it was perilous. And deep down, Peter knew he was right. Climbing an iceberg was no small feat, it was a venture filled with unpredictable risks and hidden dangers. Peter, feeling the weight of the shop owner's concern, simply wanted to convey his unwavering resolve. I have my reasons, he stated firmly, the determination clear in his eyes. I'm going to tackle that iceberg, gear or no gear. But without the right equipment, it's going to be even more perilous. Now, there was a silent plea in his words, an appeal to the shop owner's sense of reason over recklessness. After a moment of hesitation, a flicker of understanding crossed the shop owner's face. Reluctantly, he agreed to sell Peter the climbing gear, recognizing the determination in the young man's stance. However, he was not just going to leave it at that. Once back home, Peter wasted no time, brimming with excitement about his daring expedition to the iceberg summit. He had already coordinated with his brother-in-law, who assured him the boat key would be readily available. In their serene town, the idea of anyone meddling with the boat seemed almost comical. Security was the least of his concerns. Just as Peter readied himself to head for the harbor, a sharp rap at the door echoed through the house, jolting him from his focus. His heart quickened with curiosity as he hurried to answer. Who could be visiting him at such a crucial moment? Peering through the window, Peter's heart skipped a beat as his eyes landed on the unmistakable sight of a police car parked outside his house. It didn't take long for him to piece together that the shop owner must have called the police after their conversation. The room suddenly felt smaller, the air a bit tighter, as the reality of the situation settled in. His mind buzzed with thoughts of the police coming to talk him out of his plan, or perhaps even to prevent him from attempting it altogether. The prospect of confrontation made his stomach tighten, a subtle but unmistakable sign of his nervousness. Peter realized he needed to make a quick decision. Logically, the safest option would be for Peter to simply open the door, talk to the police, and abandon his daring plan. Yet, the very thought of giving up on his adventure before it even began was unbearable. The iceberg had become more than just a curiosity, it was a challenge he felt compelled to conquer, a dream he was determined to pursue, no matter the risk.